So today I want to talk to you about why I'm creating this podcast and how I got started. I think this is one of the main reasons I'm creating this podcast, because I was creating so many different things and I realized I couldn't really express myself the way I wanted. So I decided to create these long form podcasts so you can really understand what my life was about and my perspectives. And I think there are things that anyone who listens to it, there are a lot of things I feel that I can help you see things differently, even that can lead to a better life, a better way to live. Because a lot of these things that I've been working on, looking into, I've been testing out for a long time, and I had the opportunity to do it. And now I'm basically I'm going to be talking to you about what happened in my life and how did I get started, and where I am at right now, and what actually worked for me, what didn't work for me, and how you can learn from what I have learned so far. So my goal is to essentially have one podcast episode released, but I know I'm planning to create multiple versions as I feel comfortable with the topics I'm going to be talking about. And once I really got an understanding, there's certain things that you need to know. So I would say one of the main first things that I want to talk to you about is how did my life begin? How did it come to where it is now? So my life began, when I was born in Sri Lanka, into a Buddhist family. So I was first exposed to a lot of Buddhism, a lot of rituals. Especially my grandmother was a devout Buddhist. So we were exposed to, various rituals and knowledge and verses and all these things. And I really, to be honest, when I'm looking back, I really did enjoy that. I don't know how much of spirituality were there, but I can see, looking back in my life, I did enjoy the experience of having that, being in that Buddhist culture, or having that Buddhist influence. But what happened, when I turned 14, we decided to migrate to Canada. That's when I feel a lot of my, challenges begin, and that's when I feel like I was actually finding ways to work with my challenges. So we moved to Canada when, with my mom, my sister, and my dad. We all moved to Canada when, in 2002. Right after the 9/11 happened. In fact, our arrival, migration got delayed because of the 9/11 event itself. We were supposed to be here earlier, but that's how it worked out. And then what happened was, after that, I went to started to go to school. High school, I couldn't speak English, so that was one of the biggest challenges I faced, that I remember, that was very difficult to deal with at that time, was that I was new to the culture, really didn't understand what the culture was about. It's completely new. Really didn't understand how to interact with even people. I didn't understand the language. That was the biggest one, was that I couldn't speak with people. I couldn't understand them, and they couldn't understand me. And that's where it was like for a couple of years. And there were so many challenges that went through the process, because teachers wouldn't really understand that I'm new to the country and couldn't speak. So sometimes some of them would even pick on me, thinking that they are trying to correct my behavior and improving me and things. And it's that's something that initially I noticed that I faced, that I didn't really process until later on. And I realized that was a major challenge I faced, specifically not being able to speak and talk about the challenges I'm going through, and whatnot. And then what happened was, I, because of all these things, I was like, what, I need to find a way to, I used to even in Sri Lanka, used to play cricket, and I used to love sports. So I decided to join the cricket team in my high school. And then I joined. They had tryouts. It was grade, always in grade 9, and I go and they're like, we're not taking grade 9ers anymore. We have too many people. I was like, wait, I don't know anything else how to do, and what do I do now? Everybody's like saying that you can't play cricket. So that's all I knew. So that was a problem. So what did I do was I had my gym teacher who was he was coaching football at that time. So he just told me, you should come try out. I wasn't really doing anything, so I decided, what, I don't know what any of these things about. I'll just join and see. And it was one of the most challenging experiences I've had is playing American football. So in the beginning, we had these things called tryouts. So in tryouts, there's no real trying out. You're just given 2 weeks without pads or anything for like 2 hours outside in the sun to do a certain number of drills. And the ones who can, manage through that and survive through that are the ones who end up in the team. So it's not really like you're selecting. Everybody gets in the team, but not everybody can play because they can't handle the heat, can't handle the exercise. So I didn't really have any other thing going on. So I just stuck with it and showed up every day, regardless of how hard it was. And I came from Sri Lanka, so I used to play cricket. So the heat was not really a problem. Exercise was not really a problem, because I was used to it. So that was the beginning of me starting to learn how to transform my issues. And then what happened was when I was playing football, initially I was not a big kid and I didn't really get to play a position that is valuable enough. So they were just kind of using me anyway. And what happened was there was, in the middle of the season, there was few times I was playing something known as defensive end. It's, the details not too important, but I was playing as a defensive end and in the defensive side, and then we were supposed to basically take down the quarterback, which is the person who's responsible. It's like the general in the offensive team who does the play calling and throwing the ball, passing, handing over, or whatever. So our responsibility in the first 4 guys, my position on defensive end was to essentially take him down, like make his life difficult. So in the practice, what happened was I was able to, take him down. So I came through, I sacked him. That's called a sack. So I sacked him in one of the plays. And then everybody's like, wow, it's, and one of the things is really hard to get a sack because you're playing with top guys, great, who have experience essentially. So it's hard to really get a sack, and people were really, surprised by that grade 9 guy can go sack a quarterback like that. So that was surprising. And then what happened in the next play, the same thing happened, and they were surprised again. So again, then they started to like, wow, what's going on? Why can't we stop this guy, right? And then happened. And then what happened was, and then we started the third play, and it happened again. I sacked him again for the third time. So this really changed how the team saw me, and even the coach saw me, and the other. So they I thought it was just lucky. I just got through randomly 3 plays, and then because I've been practicing, I guess, right? But and then I got through, and then it was successful, and that kind of built like, man, like if you just keep working on something, eventually it will work out. It will eventually, things just gonna come through. And that was the first time I had that idea that might actually work. So I just kept playing, and then I kept playing. Then I became a linebacker. That became one of the leading guys for the team. And then in the next year after that, I became the captain. So so one of the main things I realized my first learning experience, if I kept doing something I like, even though it's difficult, I can overcome that challenge, right? So that's one of the major things that I discovered earlier in my life. So that kind of put a foundation, you know what I mean? Like I can put work on something. And then same thing happened when I started playing rugby. Instead of, a lot of people tried to play rugby because it's a very challenging sport. Physically, it's very demanding. Mentally, it's really demanding. And it really expands you. One of the things you will see when you're playing rugby is expands you. So one of the two sports I played was rugby and football. Is one of rugged, hardcore sports. But I feel like it has a very mental component that you need to develop certain type of resilience and type mentality of transformation. So I applied the same technique. So I just kind of kept playing, showing up for the practices, doing the thing, doing my best. And then I became the captain again. So I realized, wow, this pattern of getting better I can do. But the problem is I still had problem, writing English, even though I was able to start. I was able to speak English because one of the main things that I actually started to do to be able to speak English is because, speak more English. So I thought sports was one of the things. So that's one of the things I decided to stay with it because it just helped me, speak more English, even though my writing wasn't really getting better. So I couldn't really write anything even till properly till grade 10, grade 11. And that was even because it was that challenging. I didn't come to Canada being able to write English or being able to speak. So by grade 10, my speaking got really much better because of the events, because of sports. And then started to build my confidence. The sport started to build the confidence I need. I can transform challenging situations to better. So I thought, maybe I should do the same thing with school. So, but before what happened in end of grade 12, I had a massive leg injury. It was not really a massive at that time. It was massive because it was that was what happened to one of the first things that happened to me. And it was basically I hurt something known as LCL when I was playing rugby, and I had to take essentially grade 11 not play or not do anything. Later on in the end of the year, I started to slowly play, but I couldn't really do. So I started to if I can do well in sports, why can't I do well in what do you call sport? If I can do well in sports, why can't I do well in studies, academics? So I started to apply the same. I just started to do the homework, and I just started to get better. My grades started to improve, and I realized, I'm starting to help other people with their stuff too, and then that built my confidence. So I realized this: if you want to really transform something, that it is possible to transform. You need to put in the work and not really insist upon the outcome. Have an idea where you want to go, but don't insist upon a specific outcome right away. But do the work physically, to do the work that is necessary for you to get there. So that's one of the main things that I discovered, is that doing the work that is needed, that you enjoy behalf of the goal that you are achieving, right? So I wanted to become a good player, but I just, but I didn't really insist upon it. I know how difficult it was, right? So I just kept going to the exercise, going through the, I just start showing up and doing the work that is there, and then do it happily and enjoy myself. So that's really what I focused on, and then started to do the same thing with studies as well. I just started to focus on what I can do, focus on what I'm able to do, and that's how I managed through high school. I played sports, and then I started to, because it gave me confidence to do well in school, I started to get, instead of getting 50s and 60s, or even sometimes some of the courses I was even getting 40s, which is failing because I couldn't speak, I couldn't write, right? But in grade 11, I started to get, 60s and 70s. I realized, look, my grades can improve if I put in the time. So in that year, I had a break almost from sports, right? So that to improve my academics. So we're really the transformation completely happened when I entered grade 12. So I was at that time, because I had the issues with my leg, I started to work out in the gym. So in the grade 11, a lot of transformational things happened where I started to go to the gym, but I couldn't see any changes or anything. I would say it was a really challenging time to even to show up in the gym. So it wasn't even consistent. But I did it best I can. I was working out. I started to, take studies a little bit more seriously because that's all I could do. I could focus on those things. And then that was a period of what you could, retreat, right? Retreat, but you're working on it. Not you're just, retreating and just resting. You're retreating and developing yourself. And when I started grade 12, it was very different. People, started to talk to me different. It started to things happen. And then I started to play sports again. I started to play rugby again. I started to participate in various associations, and I got into the prefects club because I was doing well in in sports. So they're like, what, here you go, you can be a prefect, and if you're working on if you have other extracurricular activities, and then I was essentially to be a prefect, which is surprising to me. I couldn't really never thought I would be a prefect in school or high school. But that it just, naturally went into it. Then I started to apply the same techniques, just work on it, develop it. You can improve. I just started to believe that. And then I started to apply for sports, and I started to apply that for my school, and I started to see my grades improve. So by the end of grade 12, I wanted to go to university. Even, so before, every, when you enter grade 12 or grade 11, you have a chat with the counselor, right? Guidance counselor. So they weren't really helping me get into university because they thought that I won't be able to manage it. I won't be able to work on it, which is understandable with what understanding and how I did things at that time. It wasn't really seen as I would be academically too successful. But what happened was, when grade 12 ended up coming, and it started to seem like I was starting to get the grades to get into any university I want. So by the time grade 12 came, especially in the, the first, there was 2 semesters. So the first semester I was getting grades, all of them over 85, like 80 and 85. So that was pretty high grades at that time that I was getting. I was surprised by. So I just realized, what, this is maybe I want to go to university. Maybe I want to study something I want to study. I wanted to become actually a psychologist for athletes, a sports psychologist specifically, because, sports had a huge role in my life. But I realize now, I can now provide, psychology and teach psychology to everyone and use that to help their life. But one of the main goals I had at grade 12 was I wanted to go into psychology. So that's one of the things that I started to apply for universities, hoping to get into university and study psychology. Right? So, and then end of the grade 12 came. I think I had a grade of over 85 or 84, something along the line. So that was pretty high grades that helped. So, this is coming from a person who couldn't even speak English in grade 9, right? Struggling with culturally to now getting into university, right? And then I realized there was a specific things I went through the struggle, right? I went through the struggle, and then I did certain activities, and then I was able to overcome it. And then, like I said, I applied for universities, and guess what? I got into all the universities I applied for. I got, McMaster, University of Toronto, so I applied for 2 universities of Toronto, Scarborough and downtown, Laurier, so a whole bunch of universities, and all of them accepted me, and I was so happy. I never thought I would be accepted to university like that. I never thought I would be, I would get to go to university, because there's no way if you asked me, 4.5 years ago, I could not even speak English. So to be able to go to university and be selected to any program I want to go, that was a major transformational event that happened. So then what I did was, I started university. First year, again, struggle. First year, I couldn't do what I was doing, didn't get the grades I wanted. So, the first year was really a struggle. So in university, what I did was, I started to find a way to make friends, and, I thought, making friends, studying with them would help. Got into relationships, and didn't really help, to be honest. In the first year, especially, I tried to do my best. I studied so hard. I feel like I wasn't getting the grades I wanted. I was kind of doing my own thing, hoping it would work, to be honest. But it didn't really work. So what I did, I did the same thing, to be honest, second year. I didn't really change too much the way I just studied even harder, hoping that it would work. I didn't get any extra help, or I didn't really do any of that to get better at it, right? So what happened was, again, I got similar grades. So I wasn't like, my grades were on first 2 years of university were around like 2.8, 2.9, around there. But I realized, this is not the grades I want. This is not the way I want to end university. And then also I realized I was in a very challenging relationship, and I had a hard time letting go of it. But it ended, thankfully for both of us. It ended, and it ended in second year. And then, to deal with it, I went to go see my cousin in Texas. And that experience was great. He treated me so well. I loved it. And then after that, I went to Europe. And then I spent some time. So I basically skipped a semester just to kind of, take some break and recover. And then again, I started working out. So you can see there's a working out. And again, I started to, study, like things like personal development, how to be better. I realized when I start again next semester, I'm going to make it count. I don't want to, waste it. So I'm going to make it count. I'm going to put everything I got to make the most out of my university experience. I realized I would have to go about, I was in my second year, so I would have to, based on the course I had to do about 3 years, right? So I kind of planned it that way. But I realized I'm going to make the most out of it. I'm going to put my best into it and do my best to, do my best to get the best grades I can, and also make many friends as I can and help them. So I made certain decisions, and that's exactly what happened. So when I started, again, my grades weren't the best. So what I decided to do specifically, because I didn't really know how to do well in university, and I was really looking online, what are the techniques, what are the ways. So I started to build these, basically a guideline of how to do well in university. So I started to do my own research, started to put some notes on it. And then, thankfully, when I started university in that semester, when I'm back, I met these students who were getting like 3.9 or something. They're really high grade in their university. And I was like, wow, like, how do you guys do it? Like, and then they were doing really challenging courses in biology and life sciences. So I was in psychology as well as life sciences, but I didn't know how to grade. My grades were around like 60s and 70s, and I had a lucky 80. Right, that was I really happy about. But I knew I couldn't do it on command. I knew I couldn't get grades on command. But I knew if other people can do it, there might be a way to do it. So if obviously I don't know what it is. So I need to go look into it and figure out what it is that they're doing. So that's when I began to hold this exploration on how to get good grades. And like I said, I built out I started to build out the list, my what I call the high GPA list, and I started to build my own study plan, all these things. And then when I was talking to them, these guys who was getting like 3.9, they were telling me that one of the main things that they do is that they're highly organized. They plan things in advance, and especially when they're studying for exams and things like that, they plan in advance and they study the details. They leave enough time in this, organize themselves, and they study the details inside out of especially things like lectures. So things like that, I started to pretty much everything they're doing, I started to write down on paper. And there was about, not just one, there was about 3-4 of them. And then they were just simply telling me. And then I would meet other people who would get really good grades. And I would just ask them, what are you doing to do, get good grades? And I would do it. And then that's one of the main things I found. Even things like finding past papers, I didn't really think of that. And, finding things that can help you, and then going to professor and ask him, how do I get an A+ in this course, and just ask their casual opinion, right? So advice like that I started to practice. Even things like with assignments, I started to work on it earlier, make sure that I have a process to edit them, learn how to create an outline, learn how to sentence by sentence how to correct things. So things like that I learned how to do in a technical way. And instead of me getting 3.9, I realized when I first semester I attempted these things, my grade went to 3.47 or 3. Something around that line, around 3.5 or 3.47. So that's when I realized, wow, this is, I can apply somebody else's, solutions or strategies and techniques, and I can get that working for me. I don't need to just work hard only. Right? I can actually learn, I can, work hard and add other people's techniques that work for them. That would also give me the results I want. So I was really surprised to do this, because for me, getting high grades or getting 80s was consistently was like a dream. And the fact that I was able to do that was very interesting. So I did the same thing. And then the semester after that, I got 3.6. And then it just kept going up higher and higher. And then I kept doing more, and I kept refining my system, refining my understanding. And I started to tell people, they started to improve their grades as well. So I realized, look, you will see some of the books I wrote that I'm also writing still is helping students, university students, get better grades in university. Primarily using the techniques that I found. And, even you don't need to apply all of them. Just think of it like every one of them you apply, it's going to improve your probabilities by a certain amount, right? Certain one of them have more probabilities than others. Certain ones would work more better than the others. So you don't need to really apply all of them. Apply the ones that resonate with you and work through them. So that's really what happened in there. And then, so I essentially, in the third year, I think the third year, right? So moving into my third and fourth year, I essentially got into the honors list. I got essentially GPA of in that semester alone 3.8. I think it was a little bit higher than 3.8, 3.88, something like that. So I was really surprised to get into honors. I never thought I would get into honors list or anything like that. So that was a very surprising thing to me. And I basically followed through the same thing and did the, and then I realized if I get if I can, I was targeting to get a 3.5 GPA, so I was improving it from 2.8 around there to all the way to 3.5 cumulative GPA, because I knew if I get 3.5 I would get into the honors list, or not the honors list, high distinction list. So there's distinction list that's 3.2, and then 3.5 is the high distinction list. So I realized I want to get into the high distinction list. I want to see what I can do to improve my self even more. So in order to get that, I need to get a grade of 3.94, 92 and above. So that means I needed to get pretty much all 85 and above on my courses. And maybe one or two can be less than that. So and that's really what I was shooting for. So in the last semester, I did all I can. I was taking, I think, 4 courses in my last year. 8 courses I believe I was taking, because I took a couple of them on in the summer. And then I was taking 4 courses. And then I was like, man, I'm gonna focus on doing really well and see. And then I realized in the 4 courses I did and then I realized I need to get actually all of them. I need to get 85 and above. If I were to take 5 courses, then I can have that 3.7 or on that. and that would give me, if I get two 3.7s, or I had to take one course with 4.0. So I decided to go with the 4.0. I know it was difficult and I didn't know it was going to be a possibility. But if I even missed that, I would have gone to 3.49. So I was like, it's okay. Why not? Do my best to do it, and, whatever it may be, right? So that's what I decided to do. I studied my, ass off. I put my, applied all the techniques, also the study plan, right? I put that together and I used that. And then, thank God I got close to 4.0. Especially my last semester, I got a 4.0. And then I got graduated with 3.5. So I didn't get into high distinction. So this is me getting, again, not knowing how to do anything in university, and then graduate. And then not only that, I actually went to college to take a couple of courses, learn how to do coding and computer programming and things like that as well, because I wanted to develop skills and ability in that, because I was highly interested in that aspect, and have that ability to do that was very curious to me. So I did that. And also, I worked as a director. I was a director for the Students' Union itself. So all those things I was able to do in the last 2 years successively, and I was more busy than before. But I focus on doing things that are exciting to me, things that are fun for me. So I was able to do that. So then again, I graduated with university, and then that's one of the main ways that I graduated from university, and that's one of the things that I learned is that you can be successful in anything if you decide and do things in a specific way. So in the next podcast, we will talk about specifically, we talk about my academic life and what happened and my migration. We'll talk about more about how my work life turned out. Okay, I'll see you on the next one.